Hi, my name is Heather Smith, and I'm talking with accountants and bookkeepers from all over the world about how they've defined their receipt bank preference settings. I'm asking them their thought process behind the preference settings they chose. In this video, I'm speaking with Dan Schmidt from Missouri, USA. Hi, Dan. Thank you for being with us today.
Glad to be on.
Can you share with our viewers the name of your company and how they can get in contact with you?
Name of the company is EBCFO, which is shortened from Emerging Business CFO. They're welcome to email me at dan.schmidt@ebcfo.com.
Thank you. Can you tell me approximately how many clients you have using Receipt Bank?
So we just made the conversion to Receipt Bank, or kind of in the process. I think we have 12 to 15 on Receipt Bank right now, but we are actively converting. We were on HubDoc previously. We're in the process of converting over to Receipt Bank for all those, and then we actually have a flat rate subscription with them so that we can offer that out to all the clients. So we'll have a process to onboard everyone that we work with onto it eventually.
Excellent. So, why do you like using Receipt Bank with your practice and with your clients?
Probably there's two main things that we found in the document and receipt processing space that really set Receipt Bank apart. One, it's for any receipt management tool. It's just helpful for us if we can get stuff digitally in real time from clients and minimize the hassle factor for them. We're more likely to get the documentation we need. With Receipt Bank, the integration with Xero being it's a deeper integration, so the fact that we can see suggested matches from Xero before we actually publish something is a pretty major thing. We can run expense reports along with receipts through the platform, integrate with both the payroll processor or Buildcom if we need to actually pay things out. It just provides a good central portal and works with workflows and efficiencies for us.
Excellent. How much time do you think you save using Receipt Bank in your business?
It's a little bit of a moving target because it depends on whether somebody's coming off of another expense management platform or whether they're coming in cold, and their volume, of course. But we made an assumption that it would be worth it if we were saving 1 to 2 hours a month per client of bookkeeping time. Cost justification would be there.
Excellent. And with that extra time perhaps that you're saving, what are you able to do in your business?
Well, right now, all those hours that we're hopefully going to be saving allows my staff better access time or more time to access me, which means we can do a better job at driving future efficiencies and other processes that we have, with the end game of getting me out of all of that day-to-day stuff. Then that frees us up to either offer higher value add services or go out and recruit new clients.
Thank you for sharing that. So, if we move to look at the settings that you set up in Receipt Bank, you're on the general page here, and the first block is headed up payment status. So, if I go through that, you've opted for receipts not paid unless a payment method is selected, invoices not paid, and credit notes not paid. What was your thought process behind that?
So invoices were, if we get an invoice uploaded and we know that it's one that's open needing payment, we're probably going to push it into Bill.com. So I want to mark it that way. Credit notes, same thing, whether I push it to Xero or whether I push it to another platform. I want to have it open. The receipts piece for me was the tricky one. We've previously had trouble identifying what account a client may have paid a receipt out of. Receipt Bank does a good job of looking at the last 4 digits of the card number and figuring out what account that is, but that's not either. Sometimes it's illegible, or the system can't extract it, or it's not on the documentation. And so if that payment method isn't there, I don't want it to push over as paid from a default account, because then if it goes into Xero and it went into the wrong account, it creates 2 or 3 times as much work to go undo it, figure out the right account, and then redo it. So if there's a payment method present for a receipt, great, we'll code it to that because we know. Otherwise, I want it to just be left as an open status with no payment account, and that makes it easier to match against the bank fee from Xero.
Excellent. Can you briefly explain how Build.com fits into it? Because you're the first person I've spoken to who's using Build.com. Is it attached to Receipt Bank or is it attached to Xero?
It's both. We're still exploring the right way to map everything on this. I tend to not push things to both Build.com and Xero if they're in Receipt Bank, because then you're going to get duplicates. But the workflow would be, if we get the problem we were seeing with clients is if we say, hey, if you have a receipt that was paid, send it to Receipt Bank, but if you have an invoice that needs to be paid, send it to Bill.com. Some clients are able to manage that effectively. Other clients, we just couldn't keep straight what needed to go where, and we were having problems. So it's not, for some clients, I just say, put everything into Receipt Bank and we will figure it out from there. So if they put it in the Receipt Bank, I can clearly see that it was a receipt that's been paid via credit card or something like that. We'll go ahead and push it to Xero. If I can clearly tell that it's an invoice that is needing to be paid, we'll go ahead and publish it out to Bill.com to run through their accounts payable process to get approvals and then to get paid at some future date and to get that scheduled.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that with me. The next block down is labeled due dates for invoices, and there's two fields there. Default to a number of days after the invoice date and how many days are one. What was your thought process behind that?
I have 1 day after because it didn't give me an option for Xero. At a minimum, if an invoice comes in, you know, not a lot, but a fair number of invoices in the U.S. are payable on demand or payable upon receipt.
Oh, okay.
And so that would be 0 days after. So that's the minimum that I wanted to put because I can always change it. This is just a default. And so if something's due 30 days, you know, net 30, or if it's due 10 days, I'm on net 10, then I can manually change that. But I'm going to take the least amount just so that we don't run into a problem of accidentally saying 30 days when it was due upon receipt and then a client paid that.
That's really interesting. So you're saying most bills received are due upon payment upon receipt. That's very interesting.
Well, I don't know if I would say most, but a decent number come in that way in the U.S. And so it's kind of all over the place. You know, we get all the way up to net 60 for some of them, and there's just no consistency. And so we try to pick the one that's going to cause the least number of trouble. No vendors ever complain if they get paid early, but they sure complain if it's 2 days late.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the next block down is headed up net amounts, and you've opted to show the net amounts as off for downloadable CSVs. What's your thought process behind that?
I'm not 100% sure, in all honesty, what the net amount thing. My assumption is that it's for countries that have a GST or a VAT tax system.
Yes.
And so in that case, you have to be able to break out the tax amount. In the U.S., for sales taxes, it's generally considered to be part of the purchase price, and we don't break that out separately, so I leave it off.
Oh, okay. You never look at it separately. Do you use the terminology net and gross?
We do not.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. Can I ask you to scroll further down the screen so we can see that last bit there?
Sure.
Thank you. So the next block down is headed up categorisation, and you've opted for auto categorisation to be on, inclusive of new suppliers to be on, with the category display using code and name and the category sorted by the code. What was your thought process behind that?
So at least for this particular organization, the auto categorization, I'm okay for Receipt Bank to make an initial stab at trying to figure out what category it should go into. And I'm okay for it to try that on new suppliers. In terms of the category display, I'm an accountant. I like numbers. So I'm going to ask just for it to show me the code and the name and for it to sort by the numerical. I tend to think in numerical strings, not just text.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. The next block down you've listed is headed up archiving, and you've got 4 fields here: published, yes; exported to CSV, no; added to ER, yes; exported to PDF. So if you've published or added to an expense report, you're going to archive it. What was your thought process behind that?
So again, it kind of goes back to do the least amount of harm that you can. If I've published it or added it to an expense report, I know that somebody's looked at it and that it has moved on to another system. Either, we published it to Xero or Build.com, or if it was added to an expense report, then we know it's been captured. So at that point, I'm okay to archive it. I don't want to accidentally archive something that I don't mean to, which, if I'm exporting something to a PDF or exporting it to a CSV, there's a chance that I'm doing that just so that I can review it in another platform or another medium. And I may still need to work with it, so I don't want it to be archived unless I specifically tell it to be archived in that circumstance.
Yes, absolutely. And I think everyone has it set up. Everyone around the world has it set up like that.
Oh, good. Means I'm doing it right then. That's good to hear.
Can I ask you to scroll to the top of the screen and click on the next block down, integration? Thank you. If I can, okay, this is good. So you've got it integrated with Xero and you've got publish multiple currencies turned off. What was your thought process behind that?
At least for me, at least not yet. I'm not in multiple countries, so I don't need the multi-currency.
Okay.
And we don't have our Xero set up as a multi-currency environment either, and so I wanted to avoid any potential confusion there.
Are you using it for any of your clients?
We are not currently, but we're onboarding one over the next couple months that has operations in a couple different continents, and so at that point we will be using it with the multi-currency on.
Excellent. So then the next one was default publish to destination selected purchases, publish items to purchases as awaiting payment, publish expense reports to purchases as awaiting approval. So what was your thought process behind those three?
Okay. I would rather things go into purchases rather than just a spend money transaction or something else like that. I feel like the functionality in Xero is better if things are in purchases. It's just better audit capabilities. If something goes to purchases, I would rather it be an approved status and therefore awaiting payment. It's too easy to miss things that were pushed over if they're in awaiting approval. And then they can get pushed over multiple times, and then you're trying to figure out if something's really been approved and reconciled or if you actually need to still do it. So I want them to go straight to just awaiting payment, regardless of whether they've actually been paid or not, because the functionality in Xero doesn't make that much of a distinction, at least with what we deal with, between it's been paid and it's sitting in there as a paid item to reconcile against your bank feed, or if it's just a suggested match for something that's awaiting payment. Doesn't really make a difference for me. Expense reports are a little different. I want them because I'm always wanting to verify the coding before I officially approve it in Xero to make sure the coding mapped across correctly, if there were any updates. And it's just one click less. If it's in awaiting approval and it's in a draft status, it's one click less for me to go in and add any information that got missed or I need to change, versus having to say, oh, it's an approved status, now I have to go edit it, and then I can modify those things.
Are you using expense reports extensively in your business?
Not extensively, no. There's only a couple clients that use those. Okay. Most people have company cards that they're purchasing with.
Are you able to just quickly share the industries that the people using the expense reports are in?
Tech and nonprofit.
Okay, thank you. So the next block down is tax settings, and it says publish tax data to purchases, allow receipt bank to decide, use tax lists is switched as off, use supplier tax rates is switched as off. What was your thought process behind that?
It's the same, kind of back to that other screen we were on. Generally most things in the U.S. are going to be tax inclusive. We don't break it out separately, so I just leave those tax settings off kind of across the board.
Yep, excellent. Can I get you to scroll down the screen just a bit further? Thank you. So this final one here, we've got automatic publishing, and you've got this switched off. Automatically publish all items switched off. What was your thought process behind that?
I'm not comfortable enough yet with Receipt Bank and the integration, and knowing that we have all of our supplier defaults and other items set up that I trust. I still want to have somebody reviewing it before we push it over. There may be a future date when I feel comfortable enough that we have it all completely lined out enough that I'd be comfortable with it doing that, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always an ongoing refining process when you're working with these solutions. Can I get you to scroll to the top of the screen? Is there a chance we could click on the Build.com settings? I've not had someone use Build.com. Could we go through these? Do you mind?
Nope.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So you've also got a Receipt Bank integrated with Build.com. You have general Build.com settings, current integration Build.com, tax settings. Again, you've got them both switched as off, which I think you've explained a couple of times now. And automatic publishing, you've got switched as off.
Yep.
So,
for the same reasons.
Yeah, for the same things. So there's actually not many settings there at all for your Build.com integration.
There's really not. No. I have seen something interesting, which is Build.com is supposed to map to Xero, and if you have it structured correctly, will bring over the same chart of accounts and tracking categories. But there are some times when things don't update there. So if you're running the Build.com integration over to Receipt Bank, I have seen some times where either there's a lag in the Xero to Build.com to Receipt Bank integration, that things don't come through as quickly, and so there may be something missing. And so it's always good to double check that, or sometimes duplicate account codes, or if you change, accounts or archive something in Xero, it doesn't always flush through into Build.com as archive, and therefore would still be available in here also. In Receipt Bank also with Build.com and Xero, if you code it and then notice that the coding is different, if you were in Xero, which is actually an invoice you want to publish to Build.com, and you change the integration to Build.com, it will wipe out the coding settings and you have to redo them.
Oh, yikes. Yes, I agree. It does seem to be, if you're updating an account somewhere, it does seem to be a bit slow moving through sometimes. I think what happens is it does the sync periodically. However, I think there's also an option to click a button to update a sync somewhere.
There is, and it's just a cadence thing. It shouldn't go more than a day or two with getting the syncs to flow all the way through, but there can be a lag.
Yes, absolutely. Can I ask you to click on account details now, please?
Sure.
Okay, this is different to what I normally see. So, but you're able here, it looks like, to actually include your base currency of your business there. Again, you've got tax extracted as off. You've got the language set to English, and you have the ability, you've got mobile permissions here. So you've got the ability to allow users to publish from a mobile app. So you can turn that to on or off, but you've actually got it all switched to off.
I do, because I don't want the users to publish from the app. I want to go into the web portal and review it prior to publishing. If I have it turned to on, the risk is that they'll publish something over to Xero with an incorrect coding that I haven't reviewed yet.
Absolutely. And can I ask you just to scroll down to the bottom of the screen there? And so it says image sharing. By turning image sharing on, you're allowing your images to be available outside of Receipt Bank. So I assume that means the PDFs will export into Xero, and you've got that switched as on. What was your thought process behind that?
I didn't see any harm to having it turned on, and there might be functionalities where I want those images to be available. I didn't consider it to be a high risk or anything, so I went ahead and flipped it.
Thank you so much, Dan, for sharing your time with us today. It's actually been really interesting to actually see that some of the screens and options that you have in your subscription are different to what other people have. Can I ask you to share with viewers how they can get in contact with you if they'd like to?
Yep, again, Dan Schmidt with EBCFO, and the email address is just dan.schmidt, SCHMIDT, at EBCFO.com.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dan.
You're welcome.